Jack Miller hated Nexus 7. The space station always smelled like oil, sweat, and desperation. But it was the only place in this sector to get the parts he needed for his cargo ship, the Wanderer. He pushed through the crowded main hall, doing his best to ignore the flashing signs and loud sellers. His plan was simple: get the parts, maybe grab a drink, and leave. Special auction today. Rare specimens. This way, this way. A skinny man with glowing tattoos grabbed Jack's arm, pointing down a side hall. Jack pulled away. Not interested. Oh, but a ship captain like you could use some help, yes. Strong workers, smart assistants. All legal, of course. Jack's stomach turned. He knew what legal meant here on Nexus 7. The Outer Rim stations followed their own rules, and those rules allowed the buying and selling of indentured servants from non-allied worlds. He should walk away. It wasn't his problem. But something made him follow the tattooed man down the hall and into a large room where about 50 people sat on rows of metal chairs. At the front, a small stage held clear boxes. Each box contained a different alien. A tall, six-armed being with red skin, a pair of identical green humanoids with scaled skin, and at the end, a slender female figure with blue skin and white hair. Jack found himself sitting down in the back row. Next up, lot number 42, the auctioneer said, pointing to the blue-skinned alien. A starry female, approximately 25 Earth years, healthy, educated, and possessing the famous Asteri sixth sense. Bidding starts at 5,000 credits. Jack studied her. Unlike the others who had cried or looked angry, she stood still and quiet. But her eyes moved, watching everyone in the room with a calm intelligence that seemed out of place in her terrible situation. 5,000, called a voice. 7,000, said another. Jack recognized the second bidder, a representative from Orion Mining Corporation. They had a bad reputation. Workers who went with them rarely came back. 10,000, the Orion man said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The auctioneer looked around. 10,000 going once. Jack didn't know why he did it. Maybe it was the way she stood so tall despite everything. Maybe it was the quiet dignity in her eyes. 15,000, Jack called out. The room went quiet. All eyes turned to him, including the blue-skinned aliens. For a brief moment, her expression changed, a flash of hope, quickly hidden. 20,000, the Orion man countered, his smile gone. Jack checked his account balance on his wrist device. He had 25,000 credits saved for a new navigation system. It was everything he had. 25,000, Jack said, his mouth dry. The Orion man stared at Jack with cold eyes, then shook his head at the auctioneer. Sold. To the human in the back for 25,000 credits. 20 minutes later, Jack stood outside the auction hall, holding a digital ownership certificate and facing the blue-skinned alien. Up close, he noticed small dots of light on her face, like luminescent freckles. Her white hair was tied back simply, and her plain gray clothes hung loose on her thin frame. "I'm Jack Miller," he said, feeling awkward. She looked at him with large, silver eyes. "They called me Lot 42, but my name is Lyra." Her voice was soft but clear. "Well, Lyra, I'm not in the habit of owning people. Let's go to my ship and figure this out." She nodded once and followed him, staying exactly 3 steps behind. Jack noticed how people moved out of her way, some with curiosity, others with obvious disgust. The Orion representative watched them from across the hall, his expression dark with anger. Jack walked faster. The sooner they got to his ship, the better. The Wanderer wasn't much to look at. Jack's cargo ship was small, old, and patched in too many places. But it was home, and as the airlock closed behind them, Jack felt himself relax. "This way," he said, leading Lyra to the small kitchen area. He pulled out a chair for her, but she remained standing, hands clasped in front of her. "You may sit," Jack said. Lyra slowly sat down, her silver eyes never leaving his face. What work do you want me to do, Master Miller? Jack winced at the word master. First rule, don't call me that. Just Jack is fine. Yes, Jack. She waited, perfectly still. Jack ran a hand through his dark hair and sat across from her. Look, I'm not keeping you. I only bought you to keep you away from that mining company. They have a bad reputation. For the first time, surprise showed on Lyra's face. You are freeing me. Yes. Jack pulled out his tablet and transferred 500 credits to a new account. He handed her the tablet. Here's enough money to book passage wherever you want to go. You're free now. Lyra stared at the tablet, then back at Jack. I cannot accept this. Why not? Don't you want to go home? A shadow crossed her face. My home world no longer exists. The Vex destroyed it 3 cycles ago. Those of us who survived were scattered. I have nowhere to go. Jack hadn't expected that. I'm sorry, but there must be somewhere you'd like to go. Other Asteri settlements, maybe. Lyra shook her head. Even if there were, I cannot leave. Why not? You saved my life. Her luminescent freckles glowed brighter as she spoke. By the ancient laws of my people, I now owe you a life debt. I must stay by your side until I have repaid this debt. Jack frowned. That's ridiculous. I don't want a servant or whatever this is. It is not your choice. For the first time, her voice held a note of firmness. This is my way, my honor. If you force me to leave, I will simply follow your ship. If you try to lose me, I will find you. That sounds more like a threat than gratitude, Jack muttered. A small smile touched Lyra's lips. It is neither. It is simply the truth. Jack sighed and stood up, pacing the small kitchen. He lived alone for a reason. His work took him to dangerous places. Plus, his ship barely had room for 1 person, let alone 2. There's only one sleeping cabin, he said. I can sleep anywhere. The work is dangerous. All the more reason for me to help protect you. I can't afford to feed another person. I eat very little. Jack threw up his hands. You have an answer for everything, don't you? Lyra's expression remained calm. I am simply stating facts. A warning light flashed on the wall panel. Someone was attempting to access the ship's external hatch. Jack checked the security camera and saw 2 men in Orion mining uniforms. Trouble, he muttered. Stay here. They are looking for me, Lyra said quietly. The mining company. Jack nodded. I figured. How badly do they want you? Very badly. Asteri can sense mineral deposits from great distances. They would work me until death. That settled it. Jack couldn't send her out there, debt or no debt. He moved to the cockpit and started the engine warm-up sequence. We're leaving, he called back to her. If you're staying, strap in. It might get bumpy. Lyra appeared in the cockpit doorway. Thank you, Jack. Her freckles glowed with a soft blue light. Don't thank me yet, Jack replied, watching as the Orion men began trying to force the hatch. This is temporary, understand? Just until we figure something out. Lyra nodded, but there was something in her silver eyes that told Jack she wasn't planning on going anywhere. 3 days after their escape from Nexus 7, Jack was still getting used to having someone else on his ship. The Wanderer felt smaller with 2 people, but not in a bad way. You sleep here, Jack said, showing Lyra the small storage room he had cleared out. He had put an extra mattress on the floor and hung a curtain for privacy. It's not much, but it is perfect, Lyra said, touching the blanket with careful fingers. I have not had a space of my own for a long time. Jack scratched his head, uncomfortable with her gratitude. There are rules. Don't touch the cargo. Don't mess with the ship's controls without asking. And stay out of my way when I'm working. Lyra nodded seriously. I understand. Good. Jack turned to leave, then stopped. What do you eat anyway? My people can eat most things humans eat, though we need less. Well, that's something at least. Life settled into a strange new pattern. Jack would pilot the ship, check cargo, and make deals over the comm system. Lyra would stay quiet, watching everything with her silver eyes. Sometimes Jack would forget she was there, until he turned around and found her standing nearby. "You need to make noise when you move," he told her after she startled him for the third time that day. "Humans don't like surprises." "I apologize," she said. "I will try to be more noticeable." On the sixth day, Jack found Lyra looking at the engine room door. "Something wrong?" he asked. Lyra hesitated. "Your engine is making an unusual sound, a high pitch that wasn't there yesterday." Jack frowned and pressed his ear to the door. He couldn't hear anything strange. "Are you sure?" "Yes. My people have sensitive hearing." Jack shrugged and opened the door. Better safe than sorry. He checked the engine and found a loose connector that could have caused serious problems if left unfixed. "How did you know?" he asked when he returned. "I told you. I heard it." Jack studied her with new interest. "What else can you do?" Lyra's freckles glowed softly. "Asteri can sense things, sounds, feelings, danger. It is why we were valuable." "You can read minds." Jack took a step back. "No," Lyra said quickly. "We feel emotions, not thoughts, and only strong ones. Fear, anger, sometimes joy. So you know what I'm feeling right now. Curiosity, concern." She paused. "Loneliness that has been there a long time." Jack turned away, uncomfortable. "Don't do that." "I am sorry. I cannot always control it." That night, as Jack was making the simple dinner, the ship's alarm suddenly blared. A vessel was approaching fast from behind. "Pirates," Jack muttered, running to the cockpit. Lyra followed him. "Strap in," he ordered as he took the controls. But before he could start evasive maneuvers, Lyra put a hand on his shoulder. "Wait," she said. "They will fire in 3 seconds. Right thruster first." Jack didn't question her. He hit the right thruster hard. A second later, a shot from the pirate ship passed right where they had been. "How did you?" "Left thruster now," Lyra said, her freckles glowing bright blue. Jack obeyed. Another shot missed them. "Dive and roll," she said next. After 5 minutes of Lyra's directions, they had outmaneuvered the pirates and jumped to safety. "That was incredible," Jack said, breathing hard. "You knew every move they would make." "I felt their intentions," Lyra explained. "Their eagerness to fire, their frustration, their anger." Jack looked at her with new respect. "I take back what I said about staying out of my way. That was good work." For the first time, Lyra smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. "Then I have begun to repay my debt." Jack shook his head. "This isn't about debt. That was teamwork." Lyra's smile faded, replaced by a thoughtful look. "Teamwork," she repeated softly, as if testing a new word. "Yes, I think I would like that." 2 weeks passed quietly. Jack and Lyra fell into a comfortable routine aboard the Wanderer. Jack taught Lyra simple ship maintenance tasks, and she learned quickly. Her hearing and sense for danger had saved them from trouble more than once. "We're heading to Station K-12, Jack said one morning. "I have a delivery to make, and we need supplies." Lyra looked up from the star chart she was studying. "Is it safe?" "K-12 is small but respectable. Should be fine." Jack didn't mention that they were running low on money. The job would pay well, but they needed it badly. When they docked at K-12, Jack noticed Lyra was unusually quiet. "Something wrong?" he asked. "I am uneasy," she admitted, "but I don't know why." Jack checked the security scanners. "Nothing unusual. Stay on the ship while I make the delivery. Lock the doors behind me." Lyra nodded, but her freckles glowed with a worried blue light. The delivery went smoothly. Jack collected his payment and bought supplies. As he walked back to the docking bay, he sensed someone following him. He took a different route, but the footsteps continued. In a quiet corridor, 3 men stepped out in front of him. They wore plain clothes, But Jack recognized the type. Bounty hunters. Jack Miller. The leader asked. Who's asking? The man smiled. We're not interested in you. Just hand over the Asteri female, and we'll be on our way. I don't know what you're talking about. The leader sighed. The Orion Mining Corporation is offering 50,000 credits for her return. That's good money. Sorry, can't help you. Jack tried to step around them. The leader pulled out a stun gun. We tracked your ship from Nexus 7. We know she's aboard. Don't make this difficult. Jack lunged forward, knocking the weapon aside. He punched the first man, but the other two grabbed him. A sharp pain hit his side. A knife. Despite the pain, Jack fought hard. He managed to knock one man unconscious, but the leader hit him with the stun gun. Jack fell to his knees, his side bleeding. Let's get the Asteri, the leader said. Suddenly, a voice called from the end of the corridor. I am here. Lyra stood there, her white hair flowing loose around her shoulders. Her freckles glowed bright blue. Good, the leader said. Come quietly, and we won't hurt your human friend anymore. Lyra, run, Jack shouted. But Lyra walked forward calmly. When she was close to the bounty hunters, she stopped. Her silver eyes seemed to glow. You will leave now, she said in a voice unlike her usual soft tone. This voice was deep and powerful. The bounty hunters laughed, but their laughter died when Lyra raised her hands. The lights in the corridor flickered. The men suddenly grabbed their heads, crying out in pain. What are you doing? The leader gasped. Showing you my fear, my anger, my pain. Lyra's freckles now glowed almost white. Feel it all. The men ran, stumbling and crying. Lyra rushed to Jack's side. You're hurt, she said, helping him up. I'll live. What did you do to them? Asteri can project emotions as well as sense them, but it takes great energy. As if to prove her point, Lyra swayed on her feet. Back on the ship, Lyra treated Jack's wound. Her hands were gentle but shaking. Why didn't you tell me you could do that? Jack asked. Lyra looked down. I was afraid. Of what? That you would see how useful I could be. That you would keep me only for my abilities. Or worse, sell me to someone who would. Jack took her hand. I would never do that. Never. I know that now. Lyra smiled sadly. But trust is hard when you have been treated as property. Jack nodded, understanding for the first time how deeply her captivity had hurt her. We should leave, Lyra said. The bounty hunters will return with others. Can you fly the ship? Jack asked, wincing at his wound. Yes, Lyra answered, surprising him. I have been watching you. As the Wanderer broke away from Station K-12, Jack realized how much things had changed. He had saved Lyra once. Now she had saved him. Jack's wound healed slowly. For 5 days, Lyra kept the Wanderer moving through space, avoiding main routes where bounty hunters might look for them. She brought Jack food and changed his bandages, her touch always gentle. On the 6th day, Jack felt strong enough to sit in the cockpit. He watched as Lyra expertly adjusted the ship's course. You fly better than most trained pilots I know, he said. Lyra's freckles glowed faintly. Thank you. Where did you learn? She was quiet for a long moment. It is time I told you everything, she finally said. You deserve the truth. Jack waited as she set the ship on autopilot and turned to face him. I was not just any Asteri, Lyra began. I was a navigator for my people's exploration fleet. We traveled far, mapping stars and finding new worlds. Jack stared at her. You're a space navigator. That's why you learned ship systems so quickly. She nodded. 3 years ago, our main ship was attacked by raiders. They killed many of us and sold the rest. Her voice grew softer. I was sold 4 times before the auction where you found me. And the mining company. Why do they want you so badly? Asteri navigators can sense mineral deposits across great distances. We feel the pull of certain elements. The mining company discovered this ability in another captured Asteri. They worked him until his mind broke. Then they began searching for more of us. Jack felt sick. They would use you to find mining sites. Yes, until I died from the strain. Lyra looked down at her hands. But there is more I must tell you. What is it? The life debt I spoke of. She met his eyes. There is no such custom among my people. Jack blinked in surprise. You lied. Yes. For the first time, Lyra looked ashamed. I had nowhere to go. No family. No home. And I sensed you were different, kind, despite your gruff manner. I needed a reason to stay that you would accept. Jack was quiet, processing this revelation. Are you angry? Lyra asked. No, Jack said slowly. I understand why you did it, but why tell me now? Because I no longer need a lie to stay. Her silver eyes were earnest. I stay now because I choose to. Because we work well together. Because, she hesitated, because you make me feel safe for the first time in years. Something warm spread through Jack's chest. Before he could respond, the ship's alert system beeped. Lyra checked the scanner. A ship is following us, she said. Orion Mining Company markings. How did they find us? Lyra's face paled. The bounty hunters must have placed a tracker on the ship at K-12. Jack tried to stand, but pain shot through his side. We need to find it. I'll look. Lyra hurried to the engine room. She returned 10 minutes later, holding a small metal disc. It was on the outer hull. I used the maintenance hatch to reach it. Good work, but they're already on our trail. Lyra sat in the pilot's seat. I know a place we might go, a small outpost where other Asteri survivors have gathered. It's hidden in an asteroid field. Few know of it. Other survivors. You never mentioned this before. I wasn't certain it still existed. And she paused. I was afraid to hope. Jack saw the longing in her eyes. Then let's go there. Your people might help us shake off the mining company for good. Lyra's freckles glowed brightly. Thank you, Jack. As she set the new course, Jack watched her. The timid alien girl he had purchased on impulse was gone. In her place was a skilled navigator with her own past, her own pain, and her own strength. And Jack realized something that both surprised and didn't surprise him at all. He no longer wanted her to leave. The asteroid field looked like nothing special from a distance, just rocks floating in space. But as Lyra guided the wanderer deeper, a pattern emerged. The asteroids weren't random. They formed a natural shield around a central area. There, Lyra said, pointing to a large asteroid with a flat surface. The outpost should be on the dark side. Jack watched in amazement as a hidden hangar door opened in the asteroid's surface. Lyra carefully piloted the ship inside. When they stepped out of the Wanderer, 3 Asteri were waiting for them. They looked like Lyra, blue skin, white hair, luminescent freckles. But their clothes were different, made of a shimmering material that changed colors. Welcome, sister, the oldest one said to Lyra. He turned to Jack with caution in his silver eyes. And to the human. This is Jack Miller, Lyra said. He freed me from captivity. He is my friend. The word friend made Jack smile. I am Toran, the older Asteri said, leader of this refuge. Come, we have much to discuss. Inside the asteroid was a small but thriving community. About 20 Asteri lived in connected chambers carved from the rock. Plants grew under special lights, and water flowed in channels along the walls. How many escaped the raids? Lyra asked as they walked. Not enough. Toran answered sadly. Perhaps 50 across the galaxy. We know of 15 who are still enslaved. Jack saw the pain in Lyra's eyes. Can't you rescue them? Toran shook his head. We are few and not warriors. I'm not much of a warrior either, Jack said. But I know how slavers think. I could help. Lyra looked at him in surprise. Jack, you're still healing. And this isn't your fight. Someone made it my fight when they put a bounty on my ship, Jack replied. Besides, I hate slavers. That night, they made plans. The Asteri knew where 3 of their people were being held on a nearby station. Jack would pose as a buyer interested in special merchandise, while Lyra and 2 other Asteri waited on the Wanderer. Be careful, Lyra told Jack before he left for the station the next day. The mining company might have people there. I'll be quick, he promised. The plan worked better than expected. Jack found the enslaved Asteri, 2 females and a male, and convinced their owner he was a wealthy collector. When they stepped onto his ship, the Asteri used their emotional projection abilities to overwhelm the guards, allowing them to escape. Over the next few weeks, Jack and Lyra repeated this rescue mission 4 more times. They traveled to different stations and planets, freeing Asteri 1 or 2 at a time. The Wanderer became crowded with blue-skinned passengers as they transported them back to the asteroid base. Word of their actions spread. Some called Jack the Liberator in whispered conversations at spaceports. The Orion Mining Company raised the bounty on Lyra to 100,000 credits and added a 50,000 credit bounty on Jack. After their 7th rescue, Jack returned to the Wanderer to find Lyra studying a message on the ship's computer. "What's wrong?" he asked, seeing her worried expression. "The mining company knows about our base," she said. "They've hired mercenaries to attack it. Torren just sent a warning." Jack's heart sank. "How much time do we have?" 3 days, perhaps less. Jack started the ship's engines. "Then we need to evacuate everyone. Now." When they reached the asteroid base, panic had already spread. The Asteri were gathering their few possessions, preparing to flee. "Where will they go?" Jack asked Torren. "We have no other safe place," the old Asteri replied. Jack looked at the frightened faces around him. These people had been running for too long. "There's an abandoned space station in Sector 9, he said. "It's old but defensible. We can make a stand there." Lyra touched his arm. "Jack, there are too many of them. We can't fight the mining company." "Maybe not alone," Jack agreed. "But I know people who hate corporate bullies as much as I do. It's time to call in some favors." The abandoned space station looked like a ghost, dark, silent, and drifting. Jack had found it 3 years ago, but kept it secret. Now it became a shelter for 32 Asteri. "We have 2 days before the mining company finds us," Jack told everyone gathered in the main hall. "We need to prepare." Lyra stood beside him, her face determined. "The station's systems are old but working. We've restored power and life support. What about weapons?" Torren asked. "The station has some defense turrets," Jack said. "But our best chance is help." He looked at his communication device. "I've called everyone who owes me a favor. Now we wait." That night, Jack found Lyra on the observation deck, looking at the stars. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "I'm thinking about how much has changed," she said softly. "A month ago, I was merchandise. Now I'm helping lead my people." Jack stood beside her. "You were never just merchandise. Not to me." Lyra's freckles glowed warmly. "I know. That's why." The alarm cut her off. Ships were approaching. "They're early," Jack said, running to the command center. 5 large vessels with Orion Mining Company markings surrounded the station. A message came through. "Attention station residents. This is Commander Vex of the Orion Mining Company. Return all Asteri property immediately, and we may let the rest of you live." Jack opened the communication channel. "This is Jack Miller. The Asteri are not property. They are free people under my protection. You have 1 hour to reconsider," the commander replied coldly. Jack checked the radar again and felt his heart sink. Their help hadn't arrived. "We should surrender," one of the younger Asteri said, afraid. "Maybe they will treat us better this time." "No," Lyra stepped forward. "We will not be slaves again. I have an idea." She turned to Torren. "The old stories about Asteri joining mines, are they true?" The old Asteri looked surprised. Yes, but it hasn't been done for generations. It requires many of us together. We have many now, Lyra said. Could we disable their ships? Perhaps, Torrin said thoughtfully, but it would drain everyone severely. Jack looked at the countdown timer. 40 minutes left. Do we have a choice? The Asteri gathered in a circle, holding hands. Lyra explained to Jack, "We need you to keep them talking. Buy us time." As the deadline approached, Jack reopened communications with the mining company. "We want to discuss terms," he said, trying to sound defeated. "Smart decision," Commander Vex replied. "Send out the Asteri first. We need more time to prepare them." Jack stalled. On the lower deck, the Asteri circle glowed bright blue. Their freckles shone like stars as they connected their minds. "Sir," Jack heard someone shout on the mining company ship, "our systems are failing." Just then, the radar beeped. New ships were arriving, dozens of them. Independent traders, former slaves Jack had helped, even a few official Galactic Union vessels. "This is Captain Rhea of the Free Traders Alliance," a new voice announced. "We stand with Jack Miller and the Asteri." Commander Vex's voice shook with rage. "This isn't over, Miller." "Yes, it is," Jack replied as the mining company ships retreated, their systems still malfunctioning from the Asteri's mental attack. After the celebration, a Galactic Union official approached Jack. "We've been investigating the Orion Mining Company for months. Your evidence of their slave trading will shut them down for good." She handed him a badge. "We could use someone like you on our anti-slavery task force." Later, Jack found Lyra sitting alone. "The Galactic Union is offering to help your people find a new home world," he told her. "Yes," she said. "Torrin is already making plans." Jack took a deep breath. "Will you go with them?" Lyra looked up at him, her silver eyes bright. "Do you want me to?" "No," Jack admitted, "but I want you to be happy." Lyra stood and took his hands. "I was a navigator once, searching for a home among the stars." Her freckles glowed with a warm, steady light. "I found it now, aboard the Wanderer, with you." Jack pulled her into a hug. The human who bought an alien girl's freedom had found something unexpected. A family, a purpose, and a home that wasn't a place, but a person.